GHH.
Hey, back at it, man. You know, holiday Kwanzaa season, you know, whatever the people celebrating. You know.
Equality.
Hey, it's your boy Rob J10X, you know, aka Southside Solstice.
Hey, I want to give you a salute on that, man. This past Monday was a monumental moment in the solar revolutions of one Rob J10X, man. So congratulations on that,
Appreciate it. Looking forward to this being the best year of my life.
All right. Hey, we're gonna get into it today, man. It's what do they say? It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
With this topic. We've been marinating on this for a long time. And man, it's like diving into a rabbit hole and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Mm-hmm. So for the people watching, it started as Cointelpro.
Yeah, a real life supervillain.
This Cointelpro and J. Edgar Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start doing the research and making different connections, there's a journey before we even get to Cointelpro. Starting with J. Edgar Hoover. And for those of y'all that don't know, J. Edgar Hoover did 50 years in his position. I mean, this man started in the early 1920s and had a run all the way to the early 1970s when he died in 1972.
And then different black leaders that he, engaged with, spied on, used some of his different techniques on. It ranges all the way from Marcus Garvey through...
from Marcus Garvey to Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Panthers, SNCC, the SCLC. I mean,
that's a run.
The KKK, we're gonna touch on that too.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and informants, wiretaps. There's a lot of violations on our First and our Fourth Amendment, but we'll start at the beginning. And his start in those 1920s, starting with Marcus Garvey. This is what we call Cointelpro. They had this, what they call a radical division. It wasn't the FBI. It was just the BI.
Yeah, the Bureau of
the Bureau of Investigations. So this young guy comes in, and I want to say around somewhere between 1921 time. He was only about 24 years old coming in. So you come in and you're a director of the BI, the Bureau of Investigations, and then you're over this radical division. And that radical division is, hey, we're gonna deport you, frame you. Marcus Garvey was one of the people that they considered in that radical division. And in 1927, Marcus Mosiah Garvey got deported, had to go back to Jamaica.
Okay.
They deported him back. So that was one of his early starts.
Okay. And I know early on, I know a lot of my research from him came from his later, maybe more his civil rights tactics. Mm-hmm. At that point with the Garvey, was he using some of the tools that came from the Cointelpro, or early on was it a more simple, we don't like you, we're gonna just try to deport you?
The tactics were not as developed back then because as time went on, they became more devious.
Okay.
So in 1935, that's when J. Edgar Hoover becomes director of what we know as the FBI.
Okay, put that federal in front.
And he's the first director, and he had that run for 37 years. So that was a 37-year run as a director of the FBI. So so you come in the 1920s, around so I'll say starting in about 1919, then when he becomes the director of just the BI, that's around 1924.
Okay.
And then 1935, now it's the official, what he creates as the FBI. And so with that, around that time of forming the FBI, the fingerprinting and some of the forensics that they practice now was a lot of things that he was bringing in, the scientific side of the FBI.
So, and then also during that time too, would it be like that was during the time when there was a denial of whether a mafia existed? Was that one of the things that may have happened during his first?
Well, going into the 1920s and then going 1920s, the Garvey, then we go 1930s. 1930s is still kind of that gangster era. Okay. So now you got the FBI, so they're trying to hunt people like Machine Gun Kelly, Pretty Boy Floyd, Dillinger, and guys like that, the bank robbers.
Yeah.
So now you're going after the bank robber guys.
Okay.
Now, overlapping at the 30s and then kind of going into the 40s, one thing that he was in denial of was the mob. 'Cause Hoover had tabs on everybody.
Yeah.
But the mob had tabs on him. In particular, Meyer Lansky and Frank Costello.
Okay.
These were the two guys part of what they called the Luciano family. So they knew that he was a gambler.
Okay.
So they knew that. And these are allegations
Yeah.
that he's a gambler. They had a file on that. And the alleged cross-dressing and him being a homosexual.
Okay.
With his partner at the time, which was a guy, Clyde Tolson.
Okay.
They were always kind of connected at the hip. Maybe literally sometimes
Hey.
too.
You know, the man,
But
hey,
he kept him close.
the man who found dirt on everybody had dirt.
He had some dirt.
That's how it usually go, you know.
So that run of them having some dirt on him, now he eventually had to acknowledge an existence of the mafia in the 1950s. They had this big meeting in Appalachia, and this is documented with all of the big mob bosses
Okay.
going, and then the FBI at that time, they were pulling license plate tabs.
Okay.
So, you know, that's a whole different, and we're just kind of laying it out.
Yeah.
Just laying out his run and starting in the 20s as a young guy and then becoming a director in 1935 and then having that 37-year run as a director, but a 50-year run of being connected with, whether you want to call it the BI and going into what we call the FBI and all of the things that were going on in history leading up to what we would call Cointelpro. Because Cointelpro, as we know it, wasn't documented until the 1950s.
Yeah, I think, and a key thing going on in the 50s too, that, you know, really kind of, you can almost parallel it to 9/11 in a lot of ways. The Cold War and the issues going on with Russia.
Yeah,
is
communists.
It would open up the door to, you know, the clandestine approach in the Cointelpro initially. And, you know, it's kind of similar to how with 9/11, it opened up the door to some of the NSA things going on. But the initial guise of it was against that and against communism. And I think the first organization that the Cointelpro went after was American Communist organization.
Yeah,
So
he wanted to start lumping every, you know, one of his tactics was to assume everyone was a communist.
Yeah,
or
Communist
a
Party of
dissenter.
America.
Yeah, just they part of the Communist Party.
Yeah.
So that led to him going after the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Yeah.
So now we're getting into the mid 1950s, around 1956.
And one of the things too, you know, because I think history has a way of being. There's certain people that history has just been very kind to. I think like John Kennedy is one of them because, you know, Eisenhower and Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, who's Attorney General, they all approved of, you know, these COINTEL. Now, did they know exactly the scope of everything going on? You know, that kind of, I don't know, remains to be really revealed. But this wasn't something that he did just 100% just rogue, as like it's been presented by some. And I wanted to bring up a point too, when you said going after the civil groups. It was a guy, doctor, his name was Dr. T.R.M. Howard.
Yeah, Theodore Roosevelt. That was his.
That's a
Theodore
hell of a name.
Roosevelt
T.R.M.
Mason. Theodore Roosevelt Mason Howard.
Yeah, and it was his critique of the FBI not going after or addressing hate crimes from Emmett Till and other ones that really sparked the COINTELPRO pointing an eye at, you know, civil rights groups in particular.
Yeah, Hoover sent him a direct message.
Yeah, so
you know, he sent that brother a direct message. That was a brother out of Mississippi.
Yeah,
you know? So
Hoover was like, man, you spoke my name. Like Hoover,
yeah.
you speak my name is on. Like
it was those pivotal moments leading up into the very pivotal moments of the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get into the 50s and you're monitoring the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC, and what's going on there, and starting with that brother, because that brother was a mentor for a lot of those guys. He was a civil rights leader. The
TRM?
TRM, Howard, or Theodore Roosevelt, Mason Howard.
Man, that's a name right there.
Yeah, he was a mentor to a lot of the civil rights leaders around that time. So we started moving up the chain or along the timeline, and going into the 60s, it was just like at every given turn from 63, 64, and then we'll start getting 65. We started getting into 69. I mean, it was, because you got to think of what was going on in the world at that time. That's when we start hearing about the people like the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X's, and then from there you get the Black Panthers, and you got these other organizations. You got SNCC and Stokely Carmichael. You got CORE. I mean, all these organizations that they were deeming as radical.
Yeah, I mean, the list of organizations that they went after, it goes from, like you said, the Nation, all the ones you just named. They were going after Native American groups, went after feminist groups. Really had a hardcore policy that went after anti-war stance people who were really growing into like a real loud voice during that time of Vietnam. And I like the point that we had to discuss about what it was that MLK did that put him on the map, and how they felt about him with the "I Have a Dream" speech.
Oh, around was it 1963 with him having the "I Have a Dream" speech and basically looking at Martin Luther King as a threat.
Yeah, I'm like, what about the "I Have a Dream" speech? Make somebody watch that and be like, man, dog, that's a threat right there.
But they were looking at the people that were standing on the stage next to him. So they're saying, oh, he's connected with certain communists at that time.
Okay.
Even if he wasn't, you're using that as the blanket to cast on everyone. Yeah. Because you're not you're sweeping. Remember, you were sweeping the mafia under the rug as if they didn't exist until your hand was forced to acknowledge that the mafia did exist. Because your agenda was, it's these people are communists. So you're casting that net that everyone is connected to a communist at that point. But also you're looking at it from a threat to national security. Because as we go along later on, that's when you start getting into the Panthers, and you call them a threat to national security.
Most definitely.
But even with Martin Luther King, and you're looking at the influence of saying, okay, this man has this kind of influence. If he was to go from non-violent to violent, we got a problem on our hands. We got to neutralize this.
And I could say, like, from at least from the research that I did in regards to it, I think the MLK "I Have a Dream" speech was the first time that I saw documented where it was to destroy and discredit a single individual in association with the stance on communism once they enacted the Cointelpro in the 50s. And I think this probably is a pivotal time when the techniques changed, because the techniques that they used COINTEL-wise were psychological attacks, blackmail, infiltration of organizations. And I think on the list of people who really they enacted some of the worst, just almost crimes against would be Martin Luther King, because like what they did with him 2 days before receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, sending him a pretty much what was labeled a suicide package.
Yeah, a blackmail letter.
Yeah, where they had documented his extramarital affairs by spying on him. These weren't things that were gained by just public. These are things that came from illegal wiretaps, bugging his room,
his home, his hotel rooms. But you got to talk about who signed off on that. The Attorney General at that time was Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy. That's
Now it's around JFK was assassinated in '63, but JFK was on tape as saying, people think Martin is my boy.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're like, hey.
Yeah. Nah, history has been really kind to a lot of people, and I think like what they did with the wiretaps and where it went so far as to like, to the point where, they're doing it with the goal of blackmailing somebody into suicide, literally.
Yeah. It caused some depression.
Yeah.
Because it was a threat that they were going to release it to some of the media publications, and I want to say a lot of the stuff they did release, the tapings and the findings that they had. But once again, now we're getting into violating these freedom of speech. Yeah, and that Fourth Amendment of search and siege and probable cause.
Yeah, and it's a terrible thing that happened. And like one of the things that we have upcoming, in Black America that a lot of people don't know about is the year 2027, and in the year, but it was a lot of the work of Coretta and her legal team that got those tapes sealed so that we never really heard. Obviously, we know things that were spotted that happened with MLK, but right now with her passing and the certain amount of time elapsing, legally those tapes are going to fall under informational acts to where people are going to be able to access them, and people are going to be able to hear Martin in his own voice doing whatever things were done, which to me I feel like, hey, it's not going to change anything in his mind, in the way I view him, because nobody perfect, and he was doing it on his own time, and and the man never told me how to live in the bedroom. The man just was out for full citizenship.
Well, that's one of the main goals of so.
But they're gonna try to take down. I'm tell you, 2027, there's gonna be a campaign to take down some Martin Luther King statues, to take down some MLK Street. Like, if you're Black, you should probably research this, like, because this will be coming up, and it's gonna be a very real conversation. And especially when you kind of go back and forth with the Confederate statues that were taken down and all of that, it's gonna be a real attack and a real smear campaign coming up.
So it was Cointelpro was successful in that. Even years later, if we say in 2027, it was successful back then. Yeah. Unfortunately, and even the findings and all of the tapings, if it's some statue where they can put it out and release all of that in 2027, it's successful again. Yeah. So now we're in that area of 63, 64, and I know we kind of glossed over a little bit of the earlier phases, but when we start really getting into what we call Cointelpro, just for people that's watching it, 1956, the start of 56, 57, Cointelpro as we know it being acted out. Then we get to Martin Luther King Jr. around 63, 64, and we can't leave Lyndon B. Johnson out. Yeah, everyone knows he signed the Civil Rights Act, but he was also in on knowing what was going on with the wiretaps. Okay, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know. Remember, Kennedy was assassinated. Okay. And then LBJ became the president after Kennedy was assassinated. Okay. So now you got LBJ, he's still knowing what's going on. Now, Robert Kennedy would say, well, we didn't know it was going on to that extent. Right? But still, you're the AG, you're the Attorney General. Yeah. So one of the questions that people may say is, how did he have that long run? Remember the last episode, we talked about the Tuskegee experiment and how long of a run it went on from the 1932 all the way to 1972. And we were addressing, man, how do you have that long of a run?
40 years.
Hoover, how do you have that long of a run? When you're the man that got dirt on everybody, you got the power. Nobody wants to touch you. Now, he got files in his office. So every president that comes in, remember, he was appointed director by Coolidge, president, way back in the 1920s. Man. Okay. So he's there for all these different presidents. You say Kennedy, just throw him out there. Eisenhower, FDR. It's about 8 different presidents that served during his tenure as a director.
And then he got the power to just put, 200, put 100 agents on, he had the power to really get any information on anybody And you know, after in the early 60s, one of his quotes that were said was that they wanted to create a state of terror to the point where everyone when they went to their mailbox felt like there was an FBI agent behind
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. I mean,
that's some power. Right there. That's sick. You know,
if I got the dirt on you, you gotta in the words of Walter White and Breaking Bad, you gotta tread lightly.
yeah,
Right?
nah, most
You
definitely.
gotta. So now I'm creating a position of where I damn near have more power than the president of the United States, because that president don't want to cross me because I got files on everybody else, but I also got a file on you.
Yeah.
So now he's playing the game that the mob played on him.
Yeah, and you know, on top of that, you know, as some of the techniques even began to be even more advanced when they started infiltrating organizations. So it's to the point where, you know, hey, you know, if it was modern day, that's like, you know, someone spoofing your phone and then showing me a text message that you said that was talking about me or something that you never actually sent. You
Well,
know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
it
what
was-
I
it
think
was-
a lot of the Malcolm. I think a lot of, you know, many believe that the Malcolm and Elijah, you know, spat. Some of that was fueled by, you know, misinformation and things
Oh,
that
yeah.
weren't actually,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
said
yeah.
that they were, you know, that Cointelpro was, you know, sending and saying, you know, one side said versus the other.
But here's another, the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. They had an informant in the KKK. So this is where it gets really crucial. So now you got an informant. This guy, by the name of his last name is Rowe. I want to say Carl Thomas Rowe.
Okay.
Carl Thomas Rowe was an informant in the KKK by the FBI, appointed by the FBI. This is why it's so important. So critical moments in these 60s, around 1963, 63, maybe 64, but I'm thinking in Alabama. You remember hearing about the 4 little girls?
The church bomb.
bombing?
Yeah.
The KKK members?
Yeah.
Guess who was with them? That FBI informant.
So the dude Carl Rowe, not Carl Rowe, but Carl Rowe was with.
Yes, he was with them as an informant. He was with those Klan members. Also, around 1965, it was a white lady, Viola Liuzzo, Liuzzo. She was coming out of all the way from Detroit. She wanted to help the movement with what was going on with the civil rights movement and going from walking from Selma to Montgomery. So she was kind of there helping bring people back and forth from the airport. Just like a let's say a white ally in the perimeter, helping with what was going on.
Yeah.
So there's a case. This is open history. So now this informant, this FBI informant, she's riding in a car, taking a young black brother to the airport. Klan rolls up on her. They fire into the car, kill her. The reason the brother survives, when they went to the car, he just played dead.
Okay.
So now you got a murder. Who's in that car with the Klan that killed that woman? That informant.
So he was basically a killer.
Now, he didn't pull the trigger, in his words, and when we get to later, and how he comes back full circle around 1975, but just to give people a preview of that, he goes, he in his words, he's letting the FBI know, hey, this is what's about to go down.
And they're not acting on it.
Not acting on it.
Yeah.
Even with what was going on in Selma when they were bringing the buses in. And you got to think, when he's in the Klan, he's an informant in the Klan, so he's seeing so much stuff, deals being
So is
done
he
by
you
the
saying
sheriff.
was he an actual Klan member or was he
He's
somebody
an informant.
who
he's there to go back, hey, this is what's about to go down.
So
He's
he was an
supposed to-
FBI agent who
FBI
infiltrated
agent
the Klan.
infiltrating the Klan. He's
Okay,
supposed to go
all right.
back. Hey, this is what's going down. But you're involved in now. So now we get into murders that are happening around this time, 1963, 1965. So you got an FBI informant that's there, the church bombings.
Yeah.
An FBI informant when this white lady gets killed in the car with the black man. But this is how they tried to frame it. Oh, she was 39 years old. Oh, she was messing around infidelity with these black men. Oh, she was a heroin addict.
Damn, man. That's
So
crazy.
now you it's no different than now. You paint these narratives.
Yeah, that gets to a point too where there were people, and one of the things with the anti-war movement, a lot of civilians were beginning to a lot of participants in that were beginning to just feel like in their own life that they were being watched, and there was a level of surveillance coming. Yep. And this led to really the act that had it not happened.
But before we even get to that, I know what you're gonna touch on. Before we even get to that, the crucial going up the 60s chain, the 19, because we can't leave out the Panthers.
Okay, yeah, no, most definitely.
We can't leave out the Panthers. We can't leave out our boys, Huey.
I'm a ride with Huey every time. Hey, man,
and what was going on?
Got time for Huey, man. So
this is where it gets crucial, right?
Yeah,
we're in now. Kwanzaa will be going on. Yeah. This will be out. Kwanzaa will be going on. The founder of Kwanzaa, a man by the name of Maulana Karenga, 1966, started Kwanzaa. These are the ties to what was going on with Cointelpro. You had the Panthers going on. Critical moment in history, 1969. 2 people were killed on the campus of UCLA. Okay. At an event that was sponsored by the US organization, which was led by Maulana Karenga. His government name is Ron, but he changed his name to a Swahili name and started laying out the principles of Kwanzaa. He was actively going as Maulana Karenga. Mm-hmm. So now you got this college students at UCLA. You got this brother, a street brother, Bunchy Carter, which was the leader of what they call the Slossons.
Yeah, he was like the LA Panther.
They wanted him to be the leader of the LA Panthers. Okay. Yeah. And he had another brother by the name of John Huggins with him, who was also a Panther.
Okay. So were they killed directly from?
They were killed on the campus of UCLA at this. It was.
Was it by Cointelpro operatives?
Well, they had to set the scene. It was not really a poetry reading, but it was discussion on the campus about. What are the curriculums of Black Studies programs and the funding? And so it was, Maulana Karenga was considered a cultural nationalist around that time. The Panthers had some different ideologies on where they stood with the US organization and where the Panthers stood. So in short, OGs have their interpretation. It's a lot of different folklore around it, but those 2 Panthers end up dead. Yeah. Why is that critical? Because once you get to what happens in 1971, then we'll backtrack.
Okay, and then we also
and then we'll touch on what happened at. Now also, so in January of 1969, you got 2 brothers from the Panthers getting killed. That's Bunchy Carter. That's John Huggins. And also a member of the Panthers was a brother named Geronimo Jajaga. Okay. He was initially Geronimo Pratt, but he went by Geronimo Jajaga. Okay. Geronimo was a member of the Panthers, did 27 years, was getting framed for murders that he didn't even commit. They were putting Charles Manson murders on Geronimo. Yeah. Because this is what Manson was doing. He was writing pigs in blood, killing these white women. He went on that run, killing these white women, writing death to the pigs and all that. So Geronimo's like, they were putting these murders on me.
Man, that's wild.
So now he's doing 27 years as a Panther, because remember, they don't know this as Cointelpro. Yeah. Malcolm doesn't know this as Cointelpro. He doesn't know why letters are being written and the nation is being involved in this stuff, and you got these different informants. Cointelpro, as they lived, didn't exist as a word that they knew about. Yeah. They just know, okay, they getting wiretapped. One thing about Malcolm, what made Malcolm so cold, they came to his house. He didn't know he was being recorded, but he didn't snitch on it. They tried to get information. Malcolm didn't tell him anything. Hey, January 1969, Bunchy gets killed. John Huggins gets killed. December 4th, same year, 1969, now we got Fred Hampton. Yeah. Fred Hampton, chairman, Chicago, Illinois, Panthers, doing the free breakfast program. I want to say Fred was only 21.
Yeah, I think so.
Young brother. Hoover, hey, the Panthers, threat to national security. This young man, he got to go. So we get this informant, William O'Neal. Check this out. William O'Neal, he's a petty car thief.
Okay.
They get him. This is how they get him to become an informant. Hey, it's like saying, hey, man, we need you to put in some work. We know you don't, hey, either put in this work or we're going to lock you up.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to take that deal, right? So now you infiltrate. You become an informant. Not only do you become a member of the Panthers, you go full dedicated. You can map out where Fred Hampton, the place where he's at. And it's been alleged that he also had something to do with spiking Fred Hampton's drink. So Fred would be asleep. So when they came in, because remember, he was on a mattress. He got killed.
Yeah, so just walk me through like the actual murder, like how he was.
So he's going back and letting the FBI know this is the layout of the room. The FBI tried to frame it as a shootout. It wasn't a shootout.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
It's an assassination plot. It wasn't really. It happened. It was a murder.
Okay.
By the FBI. So now you got the floor plan layout from this informant. This how cold the FBI is. They go in, and another brother died. It wasn't just Fred Hampton. It's another brother that died too. What was his name? Mark.
But did they ever find ballistics of any shots back? It was just a straight up framing of
they came in with the intent to kill Fred Hampton. And it may have been some shots fired back after that.
Okay.
Now, it wasn't an initial shootout.
Okay.
You're coming in with the intent to kill Fred Hampton, which you did. You killed Fred Hampton and you killed the other brother. Now, the memory is slipping me right now. But this other brother doesn't normally get talked about, but he got killed that same day with Fred Hampton. I want to say his name was Mark, but if y'all doing the knowledge, y'all can check.
Yeah, we can come back and throw the text
just to get back to this informant, William O'Neal, he goes back. He gets a $300 raise. Now this was said by
I've seen that. I watched some of his. He did some interviews. He did interviews
he
with
did a few little interviews.
Yeah.
According to the civil rights attorney later at the time, the white guy, he said not only did he get a $300 raise, he was a pallbearer at Fred Hampton's funeral. This is how much of an informant he was. He's a pallbearer at the funeral. You go back, you get a raise.
Yeah, that was cold, man. That was man.
That's how deep seated and heavy this stuff was. Now we saying in 1969. Now let's go into 1971. Now let's talk about the what's going on with the war, and let's go on the peace movement.
So now at that time, because it was the anti-Vietnam, the anti-war crowd, and that was the thing that was unique about anti-war is it transcended race, and a lot of many of the most radical anti-war, activists were white, and so they had an uprising, and that was also on Cointelpro's radar, just taking down a lot of these anti-war groups. And one thing about I don't know, maybe just for white people, they have a different sense or noticing of certain things. But they really caught on to them being spied on, and they're obviously you don't stand out as much when you're white.
Hoover always called it domestic terror.
Yeah,
so it was always a threat to domestic terror going on.
And they started taking files. Pretty much files would be created on anyone that if you spoke out against the war, say anything like that, a FBI file would be created on you. But the crazy irony is, if you were black, I think the college is Swarthmore College. There was a file created on every single black student.
The agents that they had, for every agent Hoover had, when we talking about infiltrating and looking at what was going on in the black community, he had an informant. Some say he may have had 6 informants to every one agent. He wanted to know everything that was going on in the hood.
Yeah, and he had certain quotas where like every agent needed to bring back 3 to 6 pieces of information about a black person. That was just like a quota. Like every agent needs to bring back a certain amount of information about not even a particular black person, just somebody black. That climate was really what was building up around that time. And and still, you know, the actual Cointelpro itself was not operating in, you know, no one actually knew what it was, you know, and I think there was some anti-war protesters that actually, you know, put together a plot, and it was about the names were Bonnie and John Range, and this was a couple, basically, professor. And
he was a professor of religion at Temple University.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, they were really outspoken about it, and they linked up with a guy named William Davidon.
Yeah,
and
he was the leader, the mastermind.
Yeah, the mastermind behind it, and they came up with the plan they didn't want to go to the media and try to describe what it was doing. They wanted to have the basically catch it red-handed in their own words. So they hatched a plan to break into the FBI office. And the one that they hatched a plan to break into was in Media, Tennessee.
No, it was Media, Pennsylvania. It was a field office. They wanted to. They had their eyes set on the one in Philadelphia. It was too much surveillance.
Yeah, that was better playing than Media.
But the ringleader, he was a physicist and a mathematician. So these are just aren't military trained. You know, a married couple, professor. One guy was a taxi driver. They actually went to school to learn how to.
Keith is it Forsyth? Keith. Yeah. Went to school to learn how to do that just so he could, just for this mission. They went and acted like took a disguise as a college student and arranged some meetings up there as if she was working on a project. They put a lot of thought into it, and the thing about it is, you know, when you look at the Raines family, they had 2 small kids. Like they were really.
They had 3 at that time. They ended up with 4, but they had 3 during the time of this.
So they were really putting it on the line. And like I think one thing, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said that study the white man. And I think one thing I took from seeing their approach to this was like, hey, they realized that, hey, we're gonna take a risk and really make a sacrifice behind this move that we're doing. They they realized that marches and holding signs wasn't enough, and they were willing to actually take it to the next level. And I think that's just something, it's a side note, but I think that's something that we could really really observe, that like they wasn't about a lot of tweeting and
with that husband and wife, they had made preparations. That
exactly.
if we were to get caught, we have to have something in place for our kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the families of the other co-conspirators that was involved was like, hey, if y'all get caught, because you're gonna have to do federal time if you get caught, we'll take care of your kids. So all that had to be arranged prior to doing this and scoping this out. This happened in 1971. This is May 8th, 1971.
It was about that
now,
life.
May 8th. No, I'm saying May. It's March. March 8th, 1971 is crucial. Crucial.
Oh yeah, because the heavyweight championship of the world going on. That was the day. Yeah, that was
the fight of the century.
Yeah, that was a great date that they picked because they figured because of that fight being so big, there would be less, police attention.
Yeah, the fight gave him a distraction going on.
Yeah,
and that was Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier.
Yeah, and they realized that at that building there was no surveillance cameras, so they just happened to pick, like, it was a lot of. I mean, it was a bold plan, and a lot of times the universe, it'll reward boldness with favor. So they had a lot of things kind of go their way, and I think the first door that they planned on going through. It had some type of lock on it, they couldn't get through, but there was a second door, and that's what the lock that Forsyth was able to pick. And he said he heard people on the inside, and he was like,
he's ready to risk it all.
Yeah, he was like, man, it sounded like somebody on the inside. He was like, man, it's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Propped the door with the crowbar, went in, and once they went in, the plan was beautifully executed. They went in with suits, hit the file cabinets, and grabbed everything. Then they went to a hideaway house, started breaking down stuff. I think 10 days later, they started sending stuff to to various newspapers, and I know the Washington Post. Actually, the Secretary of State wrote to the Washington Post and other publications, saying that it would be a security risk for them to write about it. But
they sent it to, I think, either 2 senators or 2 congressmen and 3 journalists. 3 journalists that I think they assumed would be progressive in getting information out.
And I know the one most renowned for it is like Beth Metzer, and
Betty,
she wrote
yeah.
Betty Metzer, and she wrote about it in the Washington Post, and it was the beginning of an exposure into a glimpse into the level of really just chaos that they were actually orchestrating. When it to see like in Hoover's own words, to create chaos, to do that. But even in the reveal of that, there still was not an immediate understanding of what exactly the Cointelpro was, and that still required, I think it was another journalist, 3 or 4 years later, that finally kind of cracked what that meant.
Well, just to give some context on that burglary that happened at that FBI field office in Media, Pennsylvania. According to the 8 people that were involved, they just took files. They didn't know what the files were.
Yeah,
they took, in their own words, 40% of the files were documented FBI files on car theft, different little things that the FBI, they burned those.
Okay.
60% was, whoa. Then you see this word Cointelpro. Whoa, what is that? So now the meat of it was that 60% of this is what Hoover and the FBI has been doing. Mm-hmm. Now when you send this, the Washington Post prints it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're sending the documents, like you said, 10 at a time.
Yeah.
The husband working at Temple, he's risking it all. He's running the copies.
Yeah, I mean
at Temple
and with
on
doing
the
that,
copy machine.
With doing that and putting those out the way they did, the FBI had launched a full, I think 200 agent
trying to find them. Yeah,
but it was so many white anti
they can
so many
in.
white anti-war activists that it was kind of like how do you it was just a very hard.
They
to
can
identify.
blend in, and the lady, the only person they really had a lead on was the lady that went and posed as the student. Yeah. So she would be able to see the inside of the layout.
Yeah, it was a well executed plan, and it was the first time as a nation that the country actually began like demanding an investigation of the FBI. And everything was evident. And I think the result was a new court found it where you had to go and get basically an added level of authorization to put a surveillance on someone.
Well,
there was a little bit of heightened things, but
what happened after that 1971, then in 1975, you had what they called the Church Senate hearings. Okay. There was a guy by the name of Frank Church. He was a Democrat from Idaho. Okay. It was some long name, but they shortened it to just call it the Church hearings. Okay. So this is how it kind of ties back. At that Church Senate hearing, remember we talked about that guy, Carl
Rowe?
Yeah, Carl Thomas Rowe.
Yeah.
He testified in 1975 at that Church Senate hearing. Here's how he testified. Here's the irony, right? He's an informant in the Klan. Yeah. He couldn't show his face. Now, he went under witness protection. Yeah. Remember, he was never indicted in any of the stuff that was going on in the church bombings, in the killing of the white lady Viola Liuzzo. He wasn't indicted on any of that. He had a name change. He's in witness protection out somewhere in Wyoming somewhere. Yeah. So he's like, hey, I can't show my face. They put a hood on him, cut out some eyes, and you can watch this on YouTube. Like I said, the beauty of information is you don't have to believe me. You can watch it.
Yeah, so
he can't show his face, but he needs to testify. In the church hearings, and he testifies, yes, this happened. Yes, I was there. Yes, I was there. Yes, I told the FBI. 1975, he's there as an informant in the KKK, in the Ku Klux Klan, as an informant, witnessing these murders, witnessing what was going on when the sheriff saying, y'all can beat these Negroes for about 15 minutes. Yeah. And after about 15 minutes, y'all got to stop because we going to show up. Yeah. Let them know.
Man, that's wild.
He's saying, hey, I'm going back. I'm reporting this to the FBI. But he never got indicted. Like the Klan that did that under Hoover never got indicted. So now all of this stuff is starting to come out. Now this Cointelpro stuff is being revealed. It was being revealed to the public. Now at these church Senate hearings, now they're saying, okay, because one thing we did kind of leave out, Hoover in 72, he died in 72, but around 71, he's like, okay, I'm closing the case on Cointelpro. It's done. But all the dominoes are
it's still dominoes still falling.
Because remember, he died in 72 at the age of 77. So his run, 71, they have this burglary break-in. Yeah. Then he dies in 72, and now they have the church Senate hearings coming around in 1975. And now, because in that hearing, it was about the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff starts to come
So
out.
what was like the end result of the hearing?
Then they started, it was, okay, we got to take precautions on surveillance.
Okay, so that the hearing is what led to the...
Yeah, it did lead to...
enhanced whatever.
Now they're saying, they acknowledged the existence of a Cointelpro.
Okay.
And certain, within the FBI, it was found, of course, none of these people were indicted. But
Did anybody get paid?
Found unconstitutional. No restitution in the form of money. And they were saying, okay, it was constitutional rights were violated. Like I said, that First Amendment, that Fourth Amendment. But your lead guy, he's dead by this time.
Yeah.
Hoover's dead. And so
that's tough.
All of this, we're seeing all of this. And we're talking about Cointelpro, which was counterintelligence program. Cointelpro, counterintelligence program. Just to give context for when they saw it written on paper, because you see something like Cointelpro.
Yeah.
Then it comes out that it's the counterintelligence program. That letter, the blackmail letter, was read at the church Senate hearings. That comes out.
Okay.
And then they're reading that, saying, hey, this is... Now, of course, the guy that was the director of the FBI at that time, he said, well, it doesn't read like a suicide blackmail to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
of course.
No, that's funny.
So now all of the what was going on with the letters and with the informants, all of this stuff is starting to come out. Now it's like I said, it's a domino effect from the FBI to the CIA to the NSA. So all of this reveal is around 1975, but look at everything that happened prior. Yeah. Now the what ifs of what if those 8 white people didn't execute that plan? What if Ali didn't fight Frazier on that day at that time when you knew the world would stand still? Yeah. And the guy working security more than likely would be on the radio listening to the fight and not paying attention to what's going on.
Nah, most definitely.
Everything had to almost happen.
Yeah, it took a lot of, I mean, just for it to be revealed, it took a lot of, chance and boldness and fate.
But we lost a lot of people along the way. It was a lot of confusion. It caused a lot of people to be accused of being informants. It's almost like Sav's an informant. No, Rob's the informant. Who's the informant around here?
Nah, most definitely.
So all that, you wrote a letter about me, man. You said this, and all of this is going on to cause all kind of confusion.
Yeah, that was mission accomplished.
The mission accomplished. Think about the people we lost along the way, all of the mess, all of the confusion to this day that goes on with certain organizations and certain people that were involved. The irony of the fight, before we wrap it up, Ali was on the list. The night of the fight, they break in on the Cointelpro list. Ali was one of the people that they were investigating. They had a file on Ali.
Man, they had filed on a lot.
Had a file.
Anybody relevant that was black, especially if you were associated with Malcolm.
Yeah. Oh, but one last thing, because I did mention this earlier. To go back to the US organization and Bunchy Carter and John Huggins. That's when they found out about Cointelpro, they were saying it was probably some informants there that day that caused that rift. And it may have been some informants that pulled the trigger.
No doubt.
But it's still a lot of folklore around that a lot of tension may come up behind OG Panthers when bringing up Maulana Karenga's name. He's not as revered to everybody as everybody may think. Yeah, he's the founder of Kwanzaa, but in some circles, that name doesn't ring a bell of positivity. So... Any last point,
I have to hold on, man. I think that brings up a whole other topic. We're gonna have to delve into on another episode. We're gonna have to talk about infiltration, man, from within.
I mean, but that's the thing. When it's so confusing, there's been certain people that if I was to name, people's feelings may get hurt.
Yeah.
On people that were accused of being informants. You start going certain heroes, certain people hold in high regard. You may say, whoa, but some OGs will say, why do some people live? Why do some people not go to jail?
Yeah. I mean, it's a, the Black history is probably the most complex. The Black American history is probably the most complex history of any modern day ethnicity. And if we dig, it's gonna be.
Hey,
it's a real,
Hey, we got we can talk about agent provocateurs. We got agent provocateurs on social media now, and those are people that just, if we're going in one direction, if we're saying Gentleman's History Hour and we mobilizing the agent provocateur is throwing a rock over there saying, "Hey, they got a party over there, y'all," and diverting the attention somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, we about to divert to a whole new episode, man.
But no, man, it was a rabbit hole of starting with the word Cointelpro, because we've heard it. We've heard Cointelpro. We've heard the counterintelligence program. But to give some context into when it came a name that America knew and how it made it to the front pages of the media was another thing all within itself.
Most definitely.
So, I just want to say, man, just and they say to the ancestors, man, a lot of ancestors we lost at the hands of J. Edgar Hoover and that regime, or what they call the Federal Bureau of Investigations, man. It was a lot of corruption going on at the government's hands.
Most definitely. And I think that's why on every episode, and that's why, even recording live, sometimes you have to correct you. One thing I appreciate is that we owe it to them to deliver the facts,
Yeah.
So as long as I think we're doing our part by at least shining light, towards some of the darkness. So
yes, sir. This is Gentleman's History Hour. Hey, y'all hit the subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, leave a comment, let us know what y'all like, let us know what y'all don't like, what y'all love, what y'all hate. It's only gonna make us better, it's gonna make us stronger. In the name of history, in the name of the ancestors, we wanna say peace.
peace.
Yeah, peace, y'all, man. And Merry New Year, man. It's going to drop on New Year's Eve 2020.
Oh.
This is a leap year 2020, man. So
all right.
We're going to leap into 2021 the right way with Gentleman's History Hour. We got some more hard-hitting episodes that's finna come in the next year, man. Hey, yo, so stay tuned, stay locked, man. GHH. Peace.
Peace. If you're watching this on YouTube, man, hey, y'all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. This is Gentleman's History Hour.